everybody. I'm back with another virtual concert tonight. So glad to get to play again, and I sure feel much better than I did 2 weeks ago. Hopefully you will notice a difference in my piano playing and everything. So let me know how you're doing. Since I was recovering from COVID, I didn't have much time to practice, and so I just decided to do a request night tonight. And I thought I'd start with that great old ragtime cakewalk from 1897. That was at a Georgia camp meeting by Carey Mills, the same man that wrote Meet Me in St. Louis and a famous song called Red Wing. And I've had so many requests already for tonight that I won't be able to play them all. And well, I usually do about an hour and 45 minutes for each concert, so I won't be able to do them all. But I've written a few down, the ones that I really liked, the requests that came in, and hope you'll enjoy all of this. One of the requests I had from Claudia in Arizona was a tune called Red Rose Rag by Percy Wenrick. And I've been playing a little medley of Percy Wenrick's famous ragtime songs now for a while, and I thought I'd do this for all of you. It's 4 songs, starting with When You Wore a Tulip, and I Wore a Big Red Rose. No, is it the other way around? I get that song mixed up. Is it When You Wore a... Yes, When You Wore a Tulip, and I Wore a Big Red Rose, not When You Wore a Big Red Rose. Yes, I'm feeling so much better. Thanks, Terry. Gosh, great to hear from you. And then we'll do Put On Your Old Gray Bonnet, and then, uh-oh, I saw a quick little glitch in the internet there. We'll do Moonlight Bay and wind up with Red Rose Rag, 4 of Percy Wenrick's most famous songs. He was known as the Joplin Kid because he was from Joplin, Missouri. We should have really good audio and video tonight. I have a really new iPhone 13, and I just installed a brand new modem and Wi-Fi router today. That is supposed to help with my streaming. We'll see if it does. Here's my Percy Wenrick medley. much, folks. Those are all songs by the Joplin Kid, Percy Winrick. He was from Joplin, Missouri, but I think he and Scott Joplin were friends. I think there's evidence that they met at one point. I'd have to read up in my history books to be sure on that. Okay, Marianne Morse, are you listening? I promised her I would play one of my favorite authentic rags for her, which I've played a lot over the last couple of years, so I've kind of been tired of it, but I promised her I would do this, and so I hope she's listening. If not, maybe she can go back and watch it later. I'm talking about the XL Rag, and this is one of the most unusual gems of authentic Missouri ragtime, written in 1903 by Lee Edgar Settle, and it was published in Sedalia, Missouri, where Scott Joplin lived. I don't think Settle lived right in Sedalia. He lived somewhere else nearby. And of course, legend has it that he was also the true composer of the Missouri Waltz. So now for the last few years, I've been playing these tunes together. And I'll do the Missouri Waltz for you. The original title of it was the Graveyard Waltz. It's obvious why it didn't become a hit under that title, but supposedly the tune was stolen from him, and the band leader that stole the melody wrote it on the cuff of his shirt. That's the story behind the Missouri Waltz. So we'll play the Missouri Waltz and follow it right up with XL Rag, which is very much like Joplin's music, but by a different composer. Oh, good. Marianne's on YouTube. Good. Here's these tunes for you. you very much, everybody. There's the XL, Rag, and the Missouri Waltz. That goes out to Marianne in Pennsylvania. And Regina Whitcomb is watching. Hello, Regina. So sorry I didn't get to see you when I was out in California. It was kind of a whirlwind trip. Boy, it was a long drive. She says, like the video. Please do that. It helps with the social media algorithms on both Facebook and YouTube. And if you feel like sharing this with anyone you think might like this kind of music, please do. And I do accept virtual tips for these concerts. No obligation, but it's the only way I get paid. People can send in tips by PayPal or Venmo. And I even have a P.O. box for people that prefer to send checks. The P.O. box is on my website. Absolutely. Someone named Scott is asking me on YouTube if I offer lessons. I have only ever done 2 or 3 students by Zoom. It's not something that I do regularly. I'm not an expert as a teacher, but if you're really, really interested, let me know and I might be able to do something virtually with you. Just email me. Okay, let me switch over here. Yeah, Bernie, I am going to do Love Nest tonight. It's about time I did it again, I think. Tonight is just request night again. And like I said, I got so many requests ahead of time before the concert through Facebook and private messages that I wrote about 15 of them down. I'm sure I will not be able to get to them all. I saw a few already in the comments, but I'll do as many as I can. When I play a concert, I often sort of go through the whole history of American music. Start with Ragtime and then do the songs from the 1920s and 30s later on. So that's kind of how I've planned it. I'll do Love Nest here somewhere in the middle of the concert. Right now, I'd like to play a classic rag for you by the one and only Joseph Lamb. And I have never performed this except maybe once or twice recently at the Diamond Bell where I live here in Durango. It's just one of these pieces that I've always loved, had many requests for it, but never got around to learning it. So over the last few weeks, I said, you know what, I've got to learn this piece. From 1915, I believe, here is Joseph Lamb's beautiful Ragtime Nightingale. And I did have some requests for Lamb. I don't know about this piece in particular, but hopefully that'll fulfill that. Ragtime Nightingale. There we go, Ragtime Nightingale. Thank you so much, everybody. That's definitely one of the most beautiful pieces Joseph Lamb wrote. I just heard that his daughter, Pat Lamb, is turning 98. And I was reading about this on Facebook. There's a bunch of people getting together to send her cards. We should all do that. She's been an important figure in the ragtime community for years, the most active among his family with fellow musicians and so forth. So hope you all enjoyed that. Okay, now requests that came in ahead of the concert. Actually, I had more than one request for this. People wanted me to play a few songs from my latest album, which is called Take Me to the Land of Jazz with Domingo Mancuello. And one of the tunes we did on there is a famous folk song called Hesitation Blues. And when I say folk song, nobody really knows who wrote it, but there were two prominent versions during the ragtime years. W.C. Handy published a version himself, that is Handy, the father of the blues, and the version I play is based more so on one published by Billy Smythe, who was from Louisville, Kentucky. Wrote a couple of other songs during the ragtime years, not a whole lot that I know of. And also the great 1920s pianist Art Gillum recorded this, the Smythe version. And so that's kind of where we got our recording on the CD. It's based on Art Gillum's record of the song. And it's the Hesitation Blues. All kinds of famous artists have done this over the years, even Willie Nelson, for example. This has a verse to it, which is not in the 12-bar blues that everybody else plays. And I don't think I could really imitate Art Gillum without Domingo here to help me. He says a lot of funny stuff when he's playing the piano, like, "Come on, fingers," and "Percolate, I want some coffee." You know, just silly stuff like that. We'll see what I can do. Hesitation Blues. Percolate fingers. Thank you, everybody. Hesitation Blues. Oh, baby, must I hesitate. All right, so I got that request. Oh, I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of who gave me that request, but they also asked me for some other early jazz tunes. Maybe it was it you, Toby? I don't know. Anyway, they also asked me for some other early jazz tunes and New Orleans music. I thought I'd try this one for you, which I have never played that often. It's called Muskrat Ramble. What a muskrat is, I don't know. but it's a famous jazz tune written by Kid Ory, who was a trombone player from New Orleans, and I think he wrote it about 1925. The music was not published, at least until years later, so the original version, I just kind of had to pick this out by ear. I don't do that very often. I picked it up off of a couple of Johnny Maddox recordings. So here's Muskrat Ramble. Wish I had a trombone. There's Muskrat Ramble. Thank you, folks. Oh, I had no idea. Nick Taylor says, muskrat fur is the poor man's version of a mink coat. Okay, that makes a little sense. Maybe it was a common thing down in New Orleans. I have no idea. Yeah. Okay, muskrats are like a cross between a rat and a beaver. That's not the way I played it in Harrisburg. I don't remember playing that tune in Harrisburg. Okay. What else would we like to hear? Is it time for Love Nest? Bernie, are you there? This is a fellow named Bernie from Arizona who asks me for this song every time I play. And I played it for him maybe twice. It's about time to do it again. This is, it's actually a Broadway show tune. Here's the original copy of the music. And it's from a musical called Mary. Interesting, it says George M. Cohan presents Mary. He must have been the producer of the show. And music by Louis Hirsch, a great songwriter. I think he also wrote Hello, Frisco, Hello. Words by Otto Harbach. And many people know it because years later it became the theme song for Burns and Allen. So let's do the Love Nest. Bernie, I hope you heard that. Love Nest. Yeah, good. Glad you got to hear that. This musical, Mary, is one of a whole bunch in the 1920s they did that were named after girls' names. The title was taken after girls' names. How do I say that? Anyway, there was one called Irene, and there was Mary, and there was another Broadway show called Sally, which I think starred Marilyn Miller. And after all of that, then in the 1930s, Alice Faye made a musical movie called Sally, Irene, and Mary. That's the history of those Broadway shows. Anyway, let's see. I have maybe another rag or two to do for you. Anybody want a particular rag? And then I have a ragtime song here that I want to do especially for somebody. And Ken, I'm thinking about doing those requests for you next week. I might even use that album as the whole theme for the show. We'll see. I think it might be kind of interesting. I'm talking to my friend Ken from Australia. Good Laxon, I think he's watching right now. And this is a ragtime song from 1916. Here's the original copy of it. I don't know how well you can see it. It's called Way Down in Iowa, I'm Going to Hide Away. Words by Sam Lewis and Joe Young. Music by George W. Meyer, a wonderful songwriter who wrote so many hits in those days. One of the only ones I can think of right now is Tuck Me to Sleep in My Old Tucky Home. But anyway, I've only performed this song once, and it would have been about 15 years ago when my family first moved to Iowa. Sadly, my mom and stepfather are planning to sell their house in Iowa right now. It's kind of sad. It was a beautiful old 1904 house, and I've got a lot of special memories there, particularly with my grandmother. But anyway, I've only performed this song once at that time, so it's time to do it again. Way down in Iowa, I'm going to hide away. I'm going to ride away on the road that leads to yesterday. Why, I can almost picture dear old mother sprinkling sugar on my bread and butter way down in that town in Iowa. 2 heads are crowned with gray. Oh, I owe them more than I can pay. The fields of new mown hay, just moan and say, go home and stay. And when I get back with them both, I'll never leave, I'll take an oath, I'll hide away way down in Iowa. As close as I get to singing. Way down in Iowa, I'm going to hide away. Well, I'm sure disappointed in my new modem. I'm going to call Spectrum Internet and complain again first thing tomorrow. This is too bad. But if you will select the resolution yourself, if you go to that in the video, I think it is restored. Let's see. Yep, looks like everything's back. And Dave, I'm so glad you got to hear that, at least part of it. I didn't know what to do. I just kept going. The stream cut out. Let's see. Okay, is Patty watching from California? Patty from Cali. Let me know. I promised her I'd play California, Here I Come. I'm going to wait and see if she's watching real quick. write me a little message there on Facebook or YouTube, Patty. And in the meantime, let's see. I think Stephen Mumford is listening. He wanted to hear some Fats Waller tonight. Certainly one of my very favorite pianists that ever lived. And it's what you really call stride piano. Now that's sort of a form of early jazz. It's the way the black pianists played on the East Coast in the 1920s. It's very different than, say, Jelly Roll Morton's music from New Orleans or the early classic rags. And let's do Fats Waller's famous Handful of Keys. How's that, Stephen? Okay, good, you're listening. Thank you very much, everybody. Yeah, Bill Huffman, you are right on. I try and play that pretty close to the way that Fats Waller originally recorded it in 1929. I learned it out of a transcription book. The music was published, but not until several years after he wrote it and in a different key than he played it in. And it's been done so many different ways over the years. I feel like the original recording is still the best. Someone even wrote words for it, which is fantastic. They're fantastic lyrics. I love to tinkle on an old piano. And Jeff Barnhart recorded a great version of that. I've loved that for years. But anyway, there's some Fats Waller for you. And now, let me see. Nick Taylor, one of my fellow ragtime pianists, called me from Florida right before the show. He's visiting a family down there and asked me for a couple of requests, so let me play these for Nick. And we'll start, let's see. Let's start with this one. This is actually for his cousin Teresa, excuse me. And this is a song from the early 1930s, written by the great songwriter Little Jack Little. He also wrote a tune called Your Heavenly Thing, which I used to perform with Ian Whitcomb. And this is his biggest hit. It's Just a Shanty, an Old Shanty Town. And I'll play it both as a waltz and a foxtrot, which is what they would have done in those days in the late 20s and early 30s. And it's doubly appropriate that I play this tune tonight because my stepfather lost both of his parents in the last 2 months. His mom passed away about 2 weeks ago, and this was their favorite song. I think they used to dance together. Maybe it was this song was one of their favorites. That's why I first learned it about 15 years ago, so it was for them. So here's Shanty in Old Shantytown, and for Teresa in Florida, too. Let's see. Something like that. It's just a shanty in old shantytown. Thank you, folks. And the other one that Nick asked me for tonight, I hadn't played this in a while, and I just thought, you know what, I should really do this. Both of these songs were written, at least in part, by the great trumpet player Henry Bussey, or Bussey, I don't know how to pronounce it. It was very popular in the 20s and 30s. Later in his life, he led a bigger band. Nick was saying that his mom used to play for big bands, or rather that style of music, you know, and these tunes are from the very early 20s, though. We're going to do two, Wang Wang Blues and Hot Lips. Henry Bussey was known as Hot Lips. He was a trumpet player, and these are just great tunes. Wang Wang Blues and Hot Lips. There's Hot Lips. Thank you, folks. I have an original copy of that from the early 20s that was autographed by the other songwriter, a pianist named Henry Lang. Made a lot of piano rolls. I think he was from Ohio, and it was signed for Mike Montgomery, one of the famous ragtime collectors. That's definitely one of my treasures. Bob, no, I'm afraid I don't know those particular tunes. Oh, thank you so much, folks. Bonnie Minton has reminded everybody that I do accept virtual tips for these concerts. If you're so inclined, I really appreciate it. Helps me keep this career going. If you like this kind of music, you can send in both tips on PayPal and Venmo, and I have a P.O. box on my website as well. You can order all of my CDs and things directly from my own website. Oh, the Bussy Bounce. I've never heard of that. Yeah, Henry Bussy played with Paul Whiteman. That's exactly right. He's in a film short from the 1930s, too, with his band. I don't see the lady that asked for California, Here I Come. She's not on here yet. So, let's see. I did get a request for one of the famous musical tunes of the 1930s by Irving Berlin, one of the greatest songwriters that America ever had, and this is Puttin' on the Ritz. So let me do that for you now. I finally learned this tune after years, including the verse, which is wonderful. Not a lot of people play that. And it was introduced in the movie of the same name by Harry Richmond, one of my favorite vaudevillians. He had a voice when I first learned about Harry Richmond. Johnny Maddox told me his voice just speaks the 20s, which is exactly what he was like. He was sort of like I had another friend that described him as Metro's answer to Al Jolson. You know, Al Jolson made The Jazz Singer and other movies for Warner Brothers. Well, MGM had Harry Richmond. So here's Puttin' on the Ritz. There we go, putting on the Ritz. Thank you, folks. Oh, that's funny you asked me about that, Tony. This is Tony on YouTube. How about an imitation of Astaire and Rogers in the great piano scene from the movie Follow the Fleet, where he plays I'm putting all my eggs in one basket. Unfortunately, I've never played the song. I'd have to dig out the music, but it's funny you mention that because that is, I think it's the best, really, recording of Fred Astaire playing the piano, is that scene. It's really wonderful, and I wish there were more recordings or films of him doing that. Alco on YouTube has asked me twice now for a song called Here Comes My Ball and Chain. I just might play that for you. This is one of the hot tunes of the late 20s, written by J. Fred Coots, the wonderful songwriter that wrote Love Letters in the Sand, and the great uncle of the drummer Danny Coots. But it was a hot dance band tune in the 20s. Coon Sanders Nighthawks probably did the best version of it. I came up with an arrangement to record with Danny on drums, and I'm still pretty proud of that. Yeah, thank you. I'll do that. Just a second. Oh my goodness, my dad Lance is up. I can't believe he's up past 9 o'clock. He's watching the concert. Yeah, I'm pretty much well, thanks. He's one of those early riser people. He gets up in Michigan about the time I go to bed in Colorado. Anyway, so what was I going to play? Oh, Here Comes My Ball and Chain, yeah. My ball and chain. Thank you, folks. Glad to be getting so many good requests tonight. Thank you very much. Oh, yeah, I love the Coon Sanders Nighthawks, too. Oh, I've forgotten that. Well, I haven't seen Roberta in so long. I've forgotten that, Tony. I don't know if they're listening right now. Probably not, but a good friend of mine that I met through the West Coast Ragtime Festival, Jack Kirsch, loves this song. I want to do something a little different and has asked me for it many times. I think sometimes he watches the concerts like the day after I do them, but I'm going to go ahead and play it for him now. This is a rumba from the early 1930s by Ernesto Lecuona, one of my favorite pianists and composers who was actually from Cuba. And this is called Dust on the Moon. And the first time I heard this was the late Dick Kreckle. But, oh boy, I love it too. Dust on the Moon. Rumba, everybody. Well, now I've got a few more requests to get through here. Right before I started the concert, my friends Fred and Karen Youngkins asked me to play a famous song. I've got it sitting right here on the piano. This is from 1928. Let me show you. I believe this is the original edition of the music. There's another copy that includes the band leader Paul Beasy as one of the songwriters. I think his name was just added to sell the music. This is the original edition of Right or Wrong, which, let's see, music was written by Arthur Sizemore, words by Haven Gillespie, a very wonderful and famous lyricist who wrote the words to Santa Claus is Coming to Town with J. Fred Coots. And Right or Wrong was recorded in the late 20s by a man named Emmett Miller, one of my favorite vocalists who worked in blackface minstrel shows, but the way he sang was unusual. It's what they called blue yodeling in the 1920s, and because of Emmett Miller's record of this song, Bob Wills did it with the Texas Playboys, and it became a country music standard, believe it or not. But in 1928, when it first came out, it was just a regular popular song, and so many famous artists have done it over the years. Willie Nelson is one. I have always loved the album that Willie Nelson did with Asleep at the Wheel. It's Western swing music a la Bob Wills. And I think George Strait actually had the biggest hit ever with this song. In the 1980s, he did an album with this as the title song. It's also on my latest album, Take Me to the Land of Jazz, with Domingo Mancuello. And he sang the words to the song, Domingo did, and the recording engineer did a wonderful thing in the middle of the chorus where it sounds like he's calling up his lost lover on the phone, and you can hear the phone rings. Right or Wrong, I'll always love you, darling. It's really cute. Anyway, here's Right or Wrong. I don't really need the music for it. Right or Wrong. Thank you, folks. Hadn't played that since I recorded it. And now we're going to move on to another interesting request. This came from a lady named Kathy in Michigan, who I met at Bob Milne's Ragtime Festival years ago. And she asked me if I knew any Nat King Cole songs. Well, I'm sure I do. He recorded a lot of jazz standard songs like These Foolish Things and The Very Thought of You. But I came up with another special one to play for her. I've never performed this, and it was a hit, major hit for Nat King Cole, which was written in 1963, I believe. Appears the songwriter was German. Music by Hans Karst, lyric by the prolific American songwriter Charles Tobias. And it's called Those Lazy, Hazy, Crazy Days of Summer. And the reason I thought of this is that when I first started working here in Durango with Johnny Maddox, who was a very famous pianist in the 50s, he would take me to antique stores to go looking for sheet music. And he found this song for me here in Durango one day, and I remember it like yesterday. He said, "This is a really good tune, you should buy this song." And of course he had known Nat King Cole. They met when he did a TV show with Patti Page, and he said he just loved Nat King Cole. He was a very famous jazz pianist as well as a singer. Nat King Cole did many movie themes in the 50s. I don't know if he's really recognized very much for that. He would sing over the title credits and so forth in movies in the 50s. And boy, I guess he died a little young. But anyway, here's a little tribute for Nat King Cole for Kathy. Those lazy, hazy, crazy days of summer. Thank you, folks. Those lazy, hazy, crazy days of summer. Hopefully some of you remember that. It was a big hit for wonderful Nat King Cole. Would be nice to know the key I'm playing along with. Oh, I switched keys. I went from C to right up to D flat. I noticed the recording of King Cole singing it did a similar thing. Well, maybe I'll move on now here towards the end of the program. I got a couple of requests for more contemporary ragtime pieces, so I thought I'd play some of those for you. And oddly enough, I got more than one request for Red Slipper Rag. And I mentioned Johnny Maddox. Well, this is a piece that he composed in part with Glenn Rowell, who was a close friend of Johnny's, a famous 1920s and 30s radio star. And Glenn wrote the first part, which is in a minor key. Originally, it was supposed to be a Halloween song, and I don't know if Glenn ever used it that way or not. And Johnny wrote another part for it one day, and they named it after one of the nightclubs where they performed up in Denver, which was called the Red Slipper Lounge. So this is the Red Slipper Rag by Johnny Maddox and Glenn Rowell. I got more than one request for this, believe it or not, from some of my listeners. Thank you very much, Red Slipper Rag. I saw Carl on Facebook ask for a handful of keys. I already played that tonight, Carl. Oh, Kathy, I'm so glad you heard that song. Couldn't tell if you were watching or not. And let's see. Oh, I need to do a song for Carl and Amy from Seattle. They have become real good fans and friends, and they asked me for a whole bunch of different songs. So I went through the list, you two, and I picked out one that I hadn't played in quite a little while. So I'm going to do a great traditional rag that was written by one of the modern day exponents of ragtime music. He's still performing, although semi-retired at this point. His name is Bob Milne, and this is just a fun one that he wrote back in the early 70s when he was starting out his career, when he played at the Dakota Inn Rathskeller in Detroit, Michigan. And so it's called the Fly Paper Rag. Here you go. There's Fly Paper Rag. Thank you, folks. Hi there, Peter on YouTube. I saw your comment earlier today. You were talking about recording the works of Scott Joplin. I replied to you. You might find it interesting. A lot of classical pianists, that's the only ragtime composer they know, which I think is a shame. There's so many other great ones. If you like more European classical music, you'd probably like Joseph Lamb a lot. And the Joplin works have already been recorded so many times. I've never actually bothered to learn them all. I know about 10 or 12 of them by heart. But anyway, happy to have you listening tonight. Really appreciate it. What else would we like to hear tonight, folks? Come up with a couple of requests for me. I've got, another 15 minutes to fill here. Oh, that'd be fun. Good friend of mine, Claudia, who lives down in Arizona, asked me to play Rag Apples, which is another great contemporary rag. I have loved this. The piece is 20 years old now, but it was written by a good friend, Marty Mincer, who's the ragtime apple farmer from Iowa. That's why it's called Rag Apples. And part of it was also written by Professor Bill Edwards. So let me play this for you. Don't know Nighthawk Blues by heart. I wish I did. I have the original music, which is pretty rare, and I played Darktown Strutter's Ball last week, so I think I'm going to skip that for now. But for right now, here's Rag Apples. there's rag apples. Thank you, folks. I want to say something else to Peter here, who's listening on YouTube. Rather than starting with Scott Joplin, you know what you might do is listen to a lot of recordings from the original Ragtime era. They were on 78's acoustic 78 records, player piano rolls. And the other thing is you should listen to musicians who played ragtime their whole life, who devoted themselves to that art form. I can name you a couple of my favorites. John Arpin. I've been listening to Knocky Parker a lot lately. And there was my mentor, Johnny Maddox. People that really knew ragtime in and out. People who were not strictly classical specialists, for instance. There's just another suggestion for you. Look at all the other composers. And the other misnomer about ragtime, especially in academia, is that it was primarily piano solo music, which it was not. It was primarily vocal music, ragtime songs that had words that people would sing in vaudeville and stuff. For every instrumental rag, piano rag that is, there's probably 1,000 ragtime songs. And I've done a lot of them on my live streams. Anyway, yep. Yeah, there's so much good music out there. I have an idea for my live stream that I'm going to do next week. I want to ask you all for your feedback here before I decide on this. A friend of mine that I met on my tour of Australia asked me to play some beautiful ballads. And, the ones that he happened to ask for I don't really know by heart, but there are many that I do know. And I've mentioned Johnny several times tonight. He did wonderful album. It's probably among his top 5 that he ever did, called Songs That Made the Flappers Cry. And this was an album of all beautiful ballads from the 1920s, sort of parlor music almost, Gene Austen songs and that kind of thing. And he recorded this with violin and cello obbligato. And I was thinking I might do a themed concert along those lines. All the beautiful ballads from that period, songs like My Blue Heaven, and what else? Waltzes like Charmaine and Janine, I Dream of Lilac Time. So if you think you would all like that, let me know, and I might do that for my concert next weekend. I'm a little concerned that it might put some of my audience to sleep as much as I would like it personally, but let me know if you'd like to hear a concert called Songs That Made the Flappers Cry. I could throw in some jazzier tunes just for the fun of it, I guess. Let me know if you'd all like to hear that next weekend. Oh my goodness, Joshua Dolgan, yeah. Josh, you're watching. I got to know Irving for about the last 3 or 4 years of his life. Irving Fields, he was just the most wonderful man, and I've been collecting his sheet music. See, I collect old sheet music. That's one of my greatest passions, and he was so prolific. You know, he had a couple of those big hits, and but nobody else seems to play the other ones. I'll try and play one for you right now. It won't hurt. If you're still listening, Josh, text me in the chat right now on Facebook. I'll play you one of his piano solos that actually Irving even forgot about. I have a lot of his records. I found his very first 78 record. But this is a wonderful piano solo that he wrote in the 1940s. I'm pretty sure I can play it from memory without practicing here. The other confusing thing about it is he played it he published it under 2 different titles. The first title was Slightly Fantastic, and the name that he did it for RCA Victor as was Puppet's Holiday. This is what's called a novelty piano solo. I'm so glad you're listening. Let me play this for you. This is from 1947. Slightly Fantastic, aka Puppet's Holiday. It's just like something out of the 20s and 30s as far as piano music goes. fantastic, aka the Puppets Holiday. I'm talking about my late friend Irving Fields. I found out about this old-time Jewish songwriter in New York who was still living, and we became pen pals when he was about 97. And I finally got to meet him, and I even played a couple of duets with him. Josh, do you have any idea what happened to the documentary that someone was doing about him? Because they interviewed me in New York for that. I never got to see the documentary, and Irving and I played a couple of duets that day when he was about 99 on one piano with four hands, and I would give anything in the world to find the video of that. But I have not been able to contact those people or get the video. That was the only time we got to play duets. Anyway, yes, let's talk some more. I think we talked by email once or twice. Let's talk some more later. And in the meantime, I'm going to be finishing my live stream here for the night pretty soon. And let me see. Oh, it looks like people like the idea. Yeah. Okay. I think that's what I'll do. My live stream for next week will be devoted to 1920s and 30s ballads. And I'll use the title off of the Joni Maddox album, Songs That Made the Flappers Cry. And that'll be interesting. Give me a chance to play some different things that I don't normally do. And I'm afraid I don't know the Dixieland Jazz Band One Step by heart. I do know that Tease and Rag. I've played it before. Good, Dwayne. I'm so glad you like the ballads theme. I haven't done that yet for a concert, so that sounds good. And right now I'm going to play a song. I got multiple requests for this before the concert, and I know this is one of Dwayne's favorites, so I might as well end with this. This is a hot jazz number from the late 1920s, and it's called Stompin' 'Em Down, written by a black pianist named Alex Hill. Stompin' 'Em Down. Stomping them down. Thank you very much, everybody. Yeah, absolutely, Ken. I'm glad you gave me the idea. Next week's concert will be devoted a little bit, but not exclusively, to the ballads of the 1920s. I think it'll be a good idea. So glad to get back to play for all of you, and thanks so much, especially to those of you that send in the virtual tips. I know who you are, and thank you very much for continuing to do that. Hope you enjoyed tonight's concert. Please join me on Facebook and YouTube both next week, same time, 6 o'clock Mountain Time, and we'll do my next concert, which is going to be called Songs That Made the Flappers Cry. Thanks for tuning in. Good night, folks.